Hello. It's morning. Okay, great. I just hit a cat. This is our first time doing this. So there could be some odd things that happen during the video that neither one of us are expecting. But Marlena, what are we doing today?
Today we're talking about our top 5 book picks, our favorite books.
So we made a list last night or yesterday last night. I did mine last night, even though I told Marlena to do it yesterday morning. Sorry about that. So we made a list. We're going to count down from 5, work our way up to 1, go back and forth, and you guys can get to know what our favorites are. It'll be a lot of fun for us, and we're hoping it's going to be fun for you. But the main thing is we're going to have fun doing this. So.
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious. What's your favorite, Marlena?
Okay. So
and now I have a cat tail. Mm-hmm.
You have a cat?
Yeah.
Why? Is that Stark?
This is Stark.
Hi, Stark. Stark. My number 5 is Pride and Prejudice.
Oh,
so I had seen the TV series and the movie before I ever read the book, and I had 2 friends who were like obsessed with it. So I finally read it, and it's super funny. And
two friends who were obsessed with it?
Yeah. 3 friends actually. Also you.
Like I think I remember trying to get you to read that one.
It took a while because you always think Austen's going to be dry, but I listened to the audiobook, and when you hear things delivered, it's kind of like Shakespeare. When you hear it, it's better rather than reading it. So I was super funny, and it's a classic, and also a good love story. So
I agree. I love that one. It did not make my list. I really thought about adding that one, but it was not on my list. My number, actually, let's just keep talking about Pride and Prejudice for a little bit.
Okay.
It's so good. It's just so good, but the movies are, my mom doesn't remember watching them, but she's the one who introduced me to the Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice series.
Awesome.
I don't know why she doesn't remember them. They're so memorable, but yeah, it's just, I love those. I could sit on my couch all day and just watch them, the whole series, all the way through. Yeah.
Everyone in my family and that I know prefers the Keira Knightley one to the Colin Firth, and I'm just like, you're wrong.
My sister does too, and I don't understand that.
I don't know. Maybe they don't have the stamina to make it through.
Maybe that's it, or maybe it's just like the clothes are better. I will say. Move. The clothes are a little more rustic feeling in the Keira Knightley version, but
I do like the aesthetic of the Keira Knightley version.
Yeah, I like the aesthetic quite a lot. But they stick to the story so much better, and it sticks with the social norms of no touching whatsoever. Like there's way too much touching in the Keira Knightley one. Like, oh my gosh, he touched an ungloved hand, and it was like, ah!
Yeah, I think that when you have more time, you can really do it more justice. And if I have the option to choose between like really doing it justice versus it just being like fun and pretty, obviously I want more. I want more content.
And that is why we like the Colin Firth version.
Yes, Colin Firth. It's been decided.
My number 5 is the Mediator series by Meg Cabot or Cabot. Oh. I pronounced her name Cabot for years. Oh look, there's my meter reader. Fun day, meter reader. I think it's pronounced Cabot. I don't know. Maybe she'll watch this and she'll correct me. I don't know. But she's always been my favorite author since I've been in middle school, reading her books, the Ally Finkel series, Princess Diaries. Yeah, she's Princess Diaries. But the Mediator series are what really got me in. I remember my parents bought me the 5th book, Haunted, for vacation, and it was the first one I read.
They got you the 5th
I started on book number 5, yes.
Parents.
They didn't know it was the first book of the series. Just like, we're going to get her a book for the plane ride. It's going to be great. And it was great. I just really wish I had the 4 before that, and I didn't get to them until after high school. Oh, finally, there's more books. I can read this whole series, and it's
hilarious. It's awesome. He liked.
Yep. So yeah, I read those, but the reason I really like those is the main character, Susanna. She's very kick butt. she's snarky. I like characters like that.
Yeah.
And what it is she fights crimes, like ghost story crimes. So
Oh,
she's got, her principal is uh, she goes to a Catholic school, so the principal is like a deacon or a father. I can't
yeah.
remember his name right now. It's been a while since I read them. But he's also a mediator. So he's like her counselor, kind of guides her through it, tries to get her to go on the right path. They're like, oh, they're just misunderstood. It'll be okay, but stop getting yourself into dangerous situations. She's like, I need to solve this crime. I'm gonna get myself into this dangerous situation. And then she's got a roommate that her parents don't know about because they moved into this really old house, and her roommate is a male ghost
Well, of
who
course.
happened to die there. So, and he's like really smoking, of course. And, but he's very refined, Spanish, old. I think it was like gold mining era he came from. They explain his history in one of the books. But he follows her around, passes her up, scolds her for getting into stupid situations.
Teenagers need that.
It's really good. So, but there's a lot of temptation, a lot of danger, and it's just so much fun. Yeah.
Fun books are important. How many are there?
There were 7. Now there's 8. Right? She did what she did with Princess Diaries. Same thing with the Mediator series. Is she wrote her as a teen, and then a few years ago she actually wrote. Oh, she's grown up, and there's a wedding to plan for and such. It's cool. I really love following her. So.
That's cute.
All right, what's your number 4?
The Great Gatsby.
Oh yes.
I it's like the first like real book I read in high school, because like I read a lot of like teen fiction, and then in high school had English classes, and it was the first book that I ever like read as literature. So I really like the symbolism of like the green light and the like analysis of the American dream and all that, and like the commentary of classism is America. So it's like the first one I ever like actually analyzed. And obviously I kind of just like the story. Like I've always been a big fan of the 1920s, like from before high school. So that was like a really like important.
The style was very classy.
Yeah, I like
the parties were like, man, I want to go to parties like that.
Right. Or just like swimming in wealth like Gatsby. Just,
right? Yeah.
Don't want
to have so much money it's ridiculous and you don't know what to do with it.
Right. Throw parties with people that you don't know.
Dream.
In East Egg or West Egg, I don't remember.
The best we've done is probably slumber parties or bonfires.
Right. And
everybody dresses up.
Yeah, Midwest. You got to do what you got to do.
Good old Midwest.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. So that's the Jane Austen that made my list. It's not as popular as Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
In any form. But it's actually pretty low on some people's list. But I just really enjoy the fact that she wrote a mystery. She wrote a new mystery novel.
Mystery?
Yeah. It's really cool. So this girl, she grows up, she's fairly poor, but she goes with some friends and family, and she's Tinley, who's just full of sass.
Love sass.
Having a sassy man in a Jane Austen novels is like, oh, hi.
There's always a sassy man somewhere. They're always hiding.
And she gets invited over to his estate. Obviously, Austen, it's not like a, hey, come over, honey. It's more like a, hey, come over, my new friend. You can meet my family and see the beautiful grounds and get a tour and kind of thing. Because getting tours of rich people's estates was a big thing back then. So that was like, oh, hey, I get an all expenses paid vacation kind of thing. So she leaves and she goes to his estate, and she finds out that the wife died, and she's a big fan of Udolpho, which is by, I can't think of her name right now.
I'm not gonna be able to help you.
But they're real books. They're written by a woman in Jane Austen's time, or
Sounds
maybe a
familiar.
little before, that were really popular novels that women and some men read. Well, lots of men read, I'm sure. But she was really into them, and they were mystery novels, and there was always like, oh, somebody killed so and so, and you have to try to solve it. Pretty classy mystery novels. Kind of.
Yeah.
Nothing like Sherlock Holmes, but still really good. So she's got it in her head that something terrible happened to the wife, and she's trying to solve the murder mystery. So it's very much a just this. It's just so good. But the
Yeah.
thing I like about it the most, and it's a bit of a spoiler here, so plug your ears if you're planning on reading it and you don't want any spoilers. But it's very much a lesson in not letting your imagination get you carried away with real life things. So I very much enjoyed that book. It was good.
That's cool.
I want to read that one
I
again.
like Yeah, I have friends who are big into Austen, and so one of my friends is trying to read through all of them. She's kind of giving us updates as she goes, but I'll have to read that one before
You need to read that one. It's good.
Yeah,
it's shorter than the
great.
rest of them too.
Oh, I love a short book.
All right, what's number 3?
Number 3. It's a kid's book.
Yes, okay. Good.
By Jerry Spinelli. And yeah, they just made it into a Disney movie on Disney Plus. But it takes place in high school, but I think I read it when I was like 7th grade or something. And she's just this really quirky girl who like shows up and has named herself Stargirl and like has a really hard time making friends, which like resonated because A, I was a very weird kid, B, didn't have a ton of friends, and C, like really didn't have a lot of talent or direction and was just kind of like whack. So she was very like passionate about being herself no matter what anyone thought, and I always really enjoyed that, especially as a like young lass. You kind of need someone in your life who's just unapologetically themselves, and Stargirl was that for me. So it was good stuff.
There's a second book?
I do. I owned it. Yeah, I own it.
Cool.
Right. It wasn't my favorite.
It's not the same as the first book, but it's good too.
Right. I like to revisit it, and I really like all of Jerry Spinelli's book. I had a hard time picking between Stargirl and Smiles to Go, which was.
I haven't read that one. I did read Stargirl though, and I agree it's very good. So I like how he describes the settings too. Just like you feel like you're in the desert with them.
Right. And as someone who hadn't left the Midwest until she was like in her 20s, I was really like transported. She did a great job transporting, and that's important. All right, number 3, Olivia.
My number 3 is A Court of Thorns and Roses, also known as Aquitar by big fans, by Sarah J. Maas. Yeah.
Huh. I have read some of her books.
So they're labeled as teen. Well, okay, they're labeled as young adult. They're mislabeled as teen. They should not be in the teen section. They are very much, they have some content in there that is not teen friendly. But they're a spinoff of, the first book is a spinoff of Beauty and the Beast. So it's the classic story. The poor girl gets roped into staying in this beast manor kind of thing. And he's got to break a curse. But she doesn't know about the curse. So it goes off of that. And then it just gets darker. As there's 3 books in the series. There's actually going to be more. There's 3.5 books. There's also like a little short story that goes after the 3, but there's going to be more of them too here. But it's so dark. I love my dark fantasies, especially when they're based off of like actual fairy tales, because I'm a huge fairy tale nerd. Hey, if you take the quiz that I'm posting, that's one of the answers. So here's a tip for you. I'm the one that's on that question. But I really like the way she writes the characters. They're just so they just grow on you. You know them, and it's so good. And this woman can really write. She's got another couple series, Throne of Glass series, which I think has 6 or 7 books, where she does kind of a crossworlds thing where like in like there's a brief scene in one of those books where that girl falls through the world of the books that of Court of Thorns and Roses, and just very brief little blip, like, oh, hey, she's
I always like when they do that.
So I'm looking to see if she's got a connection in the book that I'm reading right now, which is her brand new book in the Crescent series, or Crescent City series, which is House of Earth and Blood. I'm in the middle of it right now. It's excellent. But I'm really enjoying that. But what got me into them was A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it was just really good. And there's so many things I could say that would be spoilers, so I won't say anything.
It's a good review.
All right, to number 2.
Lord of the Rings.
That barely made it off my list.
I don't read a lot of fantasy. I don't read a lot of fiction, to be honest, but especially I don't really read a lot of fantasy. But my college friendships were like based in Lord of the Rings. Like every year, my friends like of the English department would gather, and we would all watch the Lord of the Rings in a weekend every year. And it was wonderful because we just like had snacks and like we knew it was going to happen, but we tried to like get things out of it. And so I finally read it. Actually, I think just like this past year, and it's just
you only just read it this year.
Yeah, like I read the first one I think at the end of last year, and then it's been within the past year though that I've read them, and I've listened to them. I found a really good audiobook. And it's just a beautiful tale of friendship and like camaraderie and companionship and like good, like goodness versus evil, which is nice. But it also showcases like heartfelt male relationships and love in ways that aren't romantic, which I'm really big fan of, and I think the world could use more of. So I just big fan. It keeps me warm. I love it.
I love that book too, or I love all those books. I'm especially fond of The Hobbit.
I like The Hobbit. I read that one recently as well. I tried to read it when I was in 7th grade, and I was reading it in class, and I was on like the first page, and my English teacher goes, "Don't let that stop you from reading the rest of them." And I was like, what? And then I didn't get past like the 2nd page. It was dry, but now older that I can appreciate it. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a few books like that where if you read them when you're really young, you might not really understand what's going on, and you get a different perspective as an adult.
Right.
Like books that you enjoyed when you were a kid, you read them again, you'd be like, why did I like this?
Yeah. Like Judy B. Jones. She's just like a rough kid to raise. She just breaks rules, does wild things. But I loved reading her books when I was a kid.
I remember reading the Lord of the Rings series in high school, and I had paperbacks with the movie covers. So it had, one of the actors on the cover.
Right. Yes.
And which one was I reading? I think it's The Two Towers that has Legolas on the front. And one of the my classmates, it was during finals. He asked, are you reading about your boyfriend? Like, why are you being a creep? Leave me alone. Yeah, I remember reading those in high school, and I very much enjoyed them. Yeah. Not because it had Legolas on the cover.
No.
It was very much because
one of them, it was going to be Aragorn.
Yeah.
I don't even feel like there's like any competition there.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me, my mom was very like that. That was my mom's favorite part of the movies.
Aragorn. Isn't it everyone's favorite part? It's so pure and wonderful and
that's funny.
Classic.
Well, my number 2 is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. That was my favorite as a kid.
Aw.
So, and it's just stayed my classic favorite since then. But it's just, I like the setting. I was really obsessed with Victorian era growing up. I don't know why.
I loved the 1920s. We can yeah.
That could explain why I'm really into costuming these days. But like your historical setting costumes, and I like my historical setting books at that time. And like, oh man, I want to wear dresses like that. And now I can because I can. I'm not dependent on somebody else's coin for that. But now I can't because somebody else is dependent on my coin for what they need. So speaking of, she's right here. Say hi, Gwenny. Hi.
Hi. Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun playing dress up with that. But getting off topic here. So yeah, it's just my childhood favorite. And I like the lesson that it teaches, like looking for the magic in everyday experiences and not looking at things at face value kind of thing, or taking everything at face value. Look for the message underneath, and look for the person behind the mask kind of thing, you know. Yeah, you got the sickly boy that everybody, you know, thinks needs sheltered, and he's kind of a prick in the beginning, but he turns out to be one of her absolute best friends, and yeah, it's so good. I love that book. And I wanted a garden like that. I still want a garden like
that. Helps. My last book is kind of a Debbie Downer, but
well, that's okay. Mine's not a Debbie Downer, so I'll make up for it.
You can lift it back up. My favorite book is Evicted by Matthew Desmond. It's the only nonfiction book I put on my list, which is kind of a big deal because usually it's all nonfiction.
Yeah, you're all nonfiction usually.
I know, but I was like, I gotta choose some fiction because if I'm gonna lead with this one, the rest of it. But I read it like before I had decided I wanted to go into social work, and so it was like the first book that really taught me about like social justice and like some of the inequality we have in the world. And obviously I'd seen that, but I like didn't know anything about it. So this book taught me a lot and kind of just put me in the direction of wanting to help people. So it was also fascinating and terribly depressing. So if you're not looking for a depressing book, don't go for this one. But if you want to learn, go for this one.
I didn't read this one. So what's this one about?
It follows 3 families in, I don't remember what city, but and it talks about the like it juxtaposes people who are renting and the landlords, and it talks about the issues in like financial equality in America and how people struggle to pay their rent, how it becomes an issue of providing housing. So it's a very interesting book. I didn't know anything about eviction before reading this book, but now I know quite a bit. So it just is fascinating. It's bad, but good to know. Okay, bring us back up, Olivia.
Okay, back up. My number one is Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine.
Aw, I love that.
I read it did I read it in high school? Yeah, it came out when I was in grade school. My classmates were obsessed with it. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be obsessed with what everybody else is obsessed with. I'm a unique person. I'm going to be different. And then I picked it up in high school after the movie came out, of course. Yeah,
right, obviously.
And I love Anne Hathaway because, you know, Princess Diaries, I read those. Thought, oh, hey, she's in this movie too. Maybe I should read this book. So I picked it up. And now it's my absolute favorite book. I love it. It's just, the world is, it's beautiful. It's just beautifully done. I'm trying to read every one of her books I can, even if they're like baby books.
Aw, I love it.
She's so good. And some of her, what's that?
Who wrote it?
Gail Carson Levine.
Okay.
Levine.
Are
we getting upset? We're getting upset.
Do you have a favorite book?
What's your favorite book right now? Right now, our favorite thing to do is chew on my hand.
Very nice. Very nice. There's time for books. There's so much time.
We've been obsessed with dino snores lately.
Very cute. That's classic.
But I mean, Ella Enchanted, I could read it over and over again for the rest of my life. And I just fall in love with the characters over and over again. Prince Char, he's just the letters between them. It's just so adorable. I love reading them. And if anybody hadn't heard of Ella Enchanted, or if you haven't read it and you haven't looked up to see what it's about. It's a spin-off of Cinderella, because of course my fairy tales. I like those.
Classic.
But
Classic.
it's very, she's where you have Cinderella as a just as a servant, and she's just looking for one night, go to a party kind of thing. This is a girl who's more like fighting for her independence, because she's gifted, to obey every command that she's given. So if somebody tells her to go jump off a cliff, she has to do it unless somebody counters out to that. So she's very much fighting for her independence. There's a scene where she goes to a boarding school, and they're just like everything she can. So like the choir scene where they're like, oh, you've got a good voice, but you need to sing higher, sing louder. So she goes really loud, or she goes really high, or really low, and like she makes them fight for the
perfection,
what pitch they want.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore her as a character, and I mean, if she were a real person, I would want to meet her. She's fantastic. Yeah,
I believe it. You'd be friends.
Oh, yeah. So that's our top 5. We'd like to know what your top 5 are. So if you want to write in the comments what they are, we'd love to see that.
We'd love to
and
know.
maybe we'll pick them up too if we haven't read them ourselves. So.
Yeah, I have a few of yours that I want to pick up now.
All right. So if you like this video, let us know. We plan on doing more of these, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.